My name is Cheryl Whitaker, and for most of my adult life, I believed I was doing the right thing, the thing good daughters are supposed to do. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But when something broke, I fixed it. When a bill went unpaid, I covered it. When my parents, Gerald and Linda, started falling behind on their mortgage, I stepped in without them having to ask. It wasn't heroic. It was just habit. You see a hole in the roof, you patch it. You see your parents slipping, you hold them up. That's how I lived. Quiet, steady, and always available. Every Saturday morning, I'd stop by their house, check the thermostat, refill their prescriptions online, sort the mail handle, whatever crisis had cropped up that week. I sent grocery money through Venmo like clockwork, paid for Mom's dental work when their insurance fell through, spent 2 hours on the phone with the bank once to stop foreclosure. No thank you ever followed. No praise was needed. I told myself this is what love looks like when it grows up. I never asked for recognition. I never expected applause. That wasn't the point. I had a good job, my own apartment, no children to care for. I was the responsible one. The one who kept it all from falling apart. My younger sister, Tiffany Whitaker, lived differently. She drifted from one apartment to the next, one temp job to the next, with a trail of canceled plans and unpaid loans behind her. She once used our parents' car to chase a man she met on Instagram across state lines. Another time, she took my credit card and vanished for 2 months. When she resurfaced, no one asked questions, least of all Mom and Dad. They called her spontaneous. She's just figuring herself out. Meanwhile, I was expected to keep the lights on literally. I never minded not out loud anyway. I figured that's how families worked. Some people bring the spark, some bring the safety net. And I had always been the net. Still, there were moments, quiet, flickering thoughts I'd quickly suppress when I wondered if they even noticed how much I did. When I'd restock the fridge and no one remembered it was me. When Tiffany would breeze in on a Sunday, post a selfie with Mom and leave me cleaning the dishes, I'd brush it off. It doesn't mean they love me less, just differently. Besides, I had other things to think about. I'd been saving to open my own flower shop one day, maybe move to Seattle like I always dreamed. But somehow, each time I got close, some medical bill or emergency plumbing issue pulled me back in. That dream sat quietly in a folder somewhere the way I used to believe love should be low maintenance and visible, no need for credit. And then, one Saturday morning, while I was doing what I always did, sorting through paperwork for Dad, I found something I wasn't meant to see. Something that would shake every quiet assumption I'd made about this family and about my place in it. It started like any other Saturday. Dad had finally admitted that the paperwork in the back room was getting out of hand. Bills, insurance forms, letters from the HOA, all piled up in a plastic tub with cracked handles. He asked if I could help sort and scan them. Of course I could. I brewed a cup of coffee, grabbed my laptop, and sat at the dining room table while Dad watched the news with the volume too low, just how he liked it. I flipped through manila folders and envelopes, some unopened, some already yellowing. Electric bills from 2 years ago. A warranty for a dishwasher that hadn't worked since Tiffany's birthday party. Then I saw it tucked near the bottom of the stack. A navy blue folder labeled in my mother's handwriting, estate plan, last will. I paused. My first instinct was to set it aside. I wasn't snooping. I was helping, not spying. But something stopped me. A flicker of unease, the kind that doesn't shout, it hums. I opened it. The document was thick, neatly printed with bookmarks and signatures. I scanned the first few lines. Legal language, boilerplate stuff. But then there it was. The distribution section. The house. The savings. The car. The life insurance. All of it to Tiffany Whitaker. I kept reading, eyes blurring, stomach knotting. My name appeared once. We leave our love and gratitude to both our daughters. That was it. Love and gratitude. For Tiffany, a house and $57,000 in savings. For me, well wishes and a sentiment. The heater I paid to replace hers. The house I kept out of foreclosure hers. The life insurance I helped them secure after Dad's scare last year. Also hers. The woman who used my credit card without asking, who once crashed Dad's car and blamed the brakes, was now the sole inheritor of everything I had quietly sustained. I sat still for a moment, trying to breathe through it. My hands were shaking. The paper in front of me rustled, but the sound felt far away. It was absurd, objectively absurd, and yet Familiar. Like a truth I'd known for years but never allowed to take shape. Had they forgotten? Or worse, had they always known and simply decided I didn't need to be included? I thought of the week I spent on the phone with their bank pushing through paperwork to stall a foreclosure. The weekend I canceled my trip to Portland because Tiffany had decided she really needed to do a last-minute yoga retreat and couldn't watch Mom post-surgery. The nights I drove across town after work because the Wi-Fi was down and Dad needed help filing taxes. They must have remembered. They had to remember. The folder sat open in front of me like a wound. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there blinking at the truth spelled out in polite legalese. A few minutes later, Dad wandered into the kitchen scratching his neck. "You still scanning those papers?" he asked, grabbing a water from the fridge. I turned to him, holding the will gently like it might shatter. "Did you mean for me to see this?" He froze. Just for a second. Then came the sigh. That long, familiar sigh I'd heard my whole life. The one he used when I asked why Tiffany got the bigger bedroom, when I asked why I had to babysit again, when I asked why nobody showed up to my college graduation dinner. He looked at me, not guilty, not apologetic, and said, "You know how your mother thinks? You're fine. You've got your life together. No explanation. No remorse. Just an old tune on a worn-out record." I closed the folder, set it on the table, and stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam a door. But something inside me, something long strained and stretched, finally quietly snapped. I didn't say anything else that day. Not to Dad. Not to Mom, who was still upstairs folding laundry unaware, or maybe entirely aware of what I had just discovered. I left the will exactly where I found it. Neat. Untouched. Like none of it had happened. But in my chest, something small and stubborn began to harden. I drove home in silence. No radio. Just the ticking of the turn signal, the rhythm of a steering wheel I gripped too tight. When I parked outside my apartment, I didn't go inside right away. I sat there, keys in hand, looking at nothing. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the house. I could survive without those things I had been surviving just fine without them. What cut deepest was what the will confirmed I had never been chosen. Not for the bedroom. Not for the spotlight. Not for the legacy. And now I understood that maybe I had never even been seen. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling turn from black to gray and then pale morning. I made coffee and poured it down the drain. Everything tasted like metal. I kept telling myself there had to be more. Maybe Dad had panicked. Maybe Mom had made changes without thinking. Maybe Tiffany didn't even know. But those were hopes, not facts. What I had in front of me was ink on legal paper, and a father who looked me in the eye and said I didn't need anything because I already had my life together. As if competence canceled out love. As if responsibility disqualified you from being remembered. As if being the strong one meant you didn't count. I tried to shake it off. Tried to return to routine, but something in me had shifted. When I got texts from Mom about grocery lists or internet outages, I left them unread. When Dad sent a meme I didn't understand, I didn't respond with a polite ha-ha. And when Tiffany posted a photo of herself and my parents with the caption family dinner finally all together, I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't there. I wasn't invited. And no one had noticed. If I didn't matter in death, had I ever truly mattered in life, I stopped going over on Saturdays. No warning, no long explanation. I just didn't show up. No grocery money, no check-ins, no thermostat tweaks or prescription refills. Nothing. At first, I thought they'd notice, that I'd wake up Sunday to a missed call or maybe a simple text. Everything okay, but nothing came. Not that day or the next or the week after. A part of me clung to the idea that they were waiting me out, assuming I'd come around like always, that I'd brush this under the rug like I'd brushed so many other things, Mom's favoritism, Dad's deflections, Tiffany's chaos. But as the silence stretched on, another possibility crept in. Maybe they didn't notice because they had never really seen what I did. Maybe I was just a set of hands to them. A walking wrench, a dependable bank account, easy to forget when not in use. The first message came 2 weeks later. From Mom. Hi, sweetheart. The heater's acting up again. Could you take a look before next weekend? Thanks. That was it. No mention of the will. No acknowledgement of the silence. Just an expectation I'd show up with tools and a smile like always. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, sorry. You'll need to call someone else. She didn't reply. An hour later, Dad texted, don't be dramatic. We just didn't think you needed anything from the will. You've got your life together. That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. As if being competent disqualified me from being loved. As if stability meant I had no needs, no worth. I didn't reply. Then, of course, Tiffany chimed in. Hey, sis. Mom says you're acting weird. Can you chill out? This isn't a big deal. I blinked at the message. My jaw tightened. She was about to inherit the house I'd paid half the mortgage on for 5 years, and she thought this wasn't a big deal, I typed. Then pay the mortgage. She replied with a laughing emoji. Then, girl, I can't afford that. That's your thing. That was the moment it all clicked. They never expected me to inherit anything because in their eyes I already had what I was supposed to have. Not gratitude, not a seat at the table, just the responsibility to keep it all standing. I turned off my phone, sat in the quiet, and let that sink in. I was never the favorite. I was never even equal. I was just the one they leaned on so often for so long that they forgot I was even a person. That night, I made a decision. No more payments, no more favors, no more fixing the broken things in their house or their lives. Let them call a contractor. Let them call Tiffany. Let's see how far that inheritance gets them when I'm no longer the one holding up the roof. 3 days after I stopped responding, the guilt campaign began. It started small, subtle even. A voicemail from Mom, cheerful on the surface, carefully worded. Hi, honey. We're a little behind on the electric bill, not asking for anything, just thought you should know. Love you. Right, not asking, just informing. The way a cashier informs you your card didn't go through expecting you to fix it without being told. I deleted the message without listening twice. Then Dad called. I ignored that too. No voicemail this time, just a missed call left there like a warning, a silent tap on the shoulder. Next came Tiffany, predictably bolder. They're worried sick, Cheryl. You know Mom's blood pressure gets high when she's stressed. Can you please just talk to them and stop being selfish? There it was, the word, selfish, sharp as ever, familiar. I stared at it for a full minute, thumbs hovering over the screen. So, I was selfish now. Was it selfish when I used my savings to cover Dad's hospital bills? Was it selfish when I canceled my trip to New York so Tiffany could have her bachelorette weekend? Or when I missed 3 days of work to care for Mom after her knee surgery while Tiffany was at Coachella? I typed all of it, every example, every fact. Then I erased the message before hitting send. Not because it wasn't true, but because I finally understood it wouldn't matter. Tiffany wouldn't see it. My parents wouldn't hear it. They weren't interested in what I'd done, only what I hadn't done lately. And lately I hadn't fixed the heater. I hadn't sent the usual Venmo. I hadn't reminded them when the property taxes were due. To them, I was slipping. And when the family mule stops walking, the people riding it get angry. But here's what they didn't seem to grasp, what they never had. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. They made their choice when they signed that will. The last chance they had to say we see you, you matter. And they used it to write me out. Instead, they gave everything to Tiffany, the one who never stayed longer than a weekend. The one who posted gym selfies while I hauled furniture and negotiated insurance claims. And somehow, in the fine print, they still said, we love you both equally. I wasn't selfish. I was tired. And finally, I was awake. A week passed with no texts, no calls, no passive-aggressive Venmo requests. For a moment, I let myself believe they'd finally gotten the message. They hadn't. It was Saturday morning. I was still in pajamas halfway through a mug of reheated coffee when my building's front desk called. Hi, Miss Whitaker. There are 2 people downstairs saying they're your parents. They're asking to come up. I nearly dropped the phone. What? I asked, my pulse spiking. They said it's urgent. The receptionist continued. They look determined. I closed my eyes, took a breath that felt like swallowing gravel. Please don't let them up, I said, flat and calm. Tell them I'm not available." "Will do," he replied but hesitated. They're being pretty insistent. Of course they were. 10 minutes later, the first text came. "Mom, we're downstairs, open the door." 5 minutes after that, "Dad, we just want to talk. Be reasonable." And then, right on cue, "Tiffany, seriously, Cheryl, you're making Mom wait in the cold like this. What is wrong with you? What was wrong with me?" Nothing. What was wrong was them showing up uninvited, believing they could fix months, no years of erasure with a surprise appearance in the lobby. This wasn't a tantrum, it was closure, but apparently they needed to hear it face to face. I threw on a sweatshirt, grabbed my keys, and took the elevator down. There they were. Linda in her pearl earrings hair set, clutching her coat like it was a prop. Gerald stood beside her, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Tiffany leaned against the wall, arms folded, looking like a smug little prosecutor. I opened the lobby door just wide enough to stand in it. Mom stepped forward, her voice already trembling. "Sweetheart, we just need 5 minutes. That's all." "No," I said, even and steady. "You need money." "That's all." Her face dropped, like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is leaving your daughter out of your will," I said. "Let's call it even." Dad's jaw tightened. "We didn't come here to argue." "No, I said you came here to make me feel guilty enough to pay your bills again." I looked at Tiffany. "But I'm not doing that anymore. Ask your heir." Tiffany scoffed. "Don't drag me into this." "You're already in it," I snapped. "You got the house, you got the savings, you got the promise of everything. So why am I still the one expected to clean up the mess?" No one answered, because there was no answer. Just 3 people suddenly forced to stand in the space I used to fill and not liking the view. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You raised me to believe family was about love. Turns out it was about leverage. And now that you have nothing left to hold over me, you're panicking." Mom's lip trembled. Dad looked away. Tiffany muttered under her breath, "You're being dramatic." I smiled. "No, I'm being done." And with that, I closed the door. No yelling, no scene, no bargaining. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. They didn't stop at my doorstep. By Monday morning, the campaign had gone public. It started with a vague post on Mom's Facebook page, a 10-year-old photo of the 4 of us on a family hike I had planned and paid for. The caption read, "Sometimes the child you love most is the one who forgets you first. Prayers appreciated." The comments rolled in like clockwork. "You were such good parents. Some children just forget where they came from." We raised ours right. Thank God. By lunch, Dad had added his own version of events. Raised a daughter with everything she needed. Thought she'd care for us in our later years. Instead, she turned her back when we needed her most. And just to twist the knife, he tagged me. Tiffany followed up with a filtered photo of her and Mom on the porch swing. Mom turned slightly, eyes glistening. The caption read, "She doesn't deserve this." None of them do. But I'll keep showing up even when others don't. That's what family means. No names, no direct accusations. But everyone knew who the bad daughter was. I hadn't posted screenshots. I hadn't aired their secrets. I had stayed silent, but they hadn't. They wanted sympathy. They wanted control. Most of all, they wanted to own the story. So I wrote one post, just one. Not dramatic, not emotional, just the truth. For 5 years, I supported my parents financially while my sister contributed nothing. I paid their mortgage, their groceries, their repairs. I never asked for recognition. Then I found out accidentally that I'd been written out of their will. Everything was going to my sister. No conversation, no explanation. They made their choice. Now I've made mine. To stop being used, to stop paying for love I never truly received. If that makes me selfish in their eyes, so be it. I hit post. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt peace. Not because the war was over, but because I had finally stopped hiding. Maybe you've been the strong one too. The fixer, the quiet provider, the one who held the whole thing together without ever asking for credit. If this story sounded a little too familiar, you're not alone. Sometimes we tell the truth not to be heard, but just to stop being invisible. You don't have to explain your story. But if you've ever walked away quietly just to save yourself, leave a single word, or just a dot, that's enough for those of us who've been there to know. You were too.